Are we all ready in the control room?
All set, thanks.
All right, Mayor, we're ready to get going whenever you are.
Great. Good evening. Before we call this meeting to order, we will hear... Good evening. Before we call this meeting to order, we will hear instruction on how the public may access Spanish interpretation.
Thank you, Mayor. The following message will repeat in Spanish. We are offering live interpretation in Spanish via our Zoom platform. To access our Spanish channel, press the interpretation button at the bottom of your screen. Select Language Interpretation and press Spanish. If you're joining via Zoom smartphone app, select your language by clicking More, or the three dots at the bottom of your screen, select Language Interpretation and choose Spanish. Bienvenidos, estamos ofreciendo interpretación en español en vivo y en directo durante esta sesión. En nuestra plataforma Zoom, para tener acceso a interpretación, oprima el icono del globo terráqueo al pie de su pantalla y seleccione Spanish. Si está uniéndose a nosotros vía Zoom en su teléfono inteligente, seleccione los tres puntitos al pie de su pantalla, elija Interpretación de idiomas y presione Spanish o Español según su formato. Muchas gracias. Thank you, Mayor. Back to you.
Great, thank you. We will call the meeting to order if you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and we're going to start with our land acknowledgement. The City of South Lake Tahoe acknowledges the land we occupy today are the lands and home of the Washishu, the people from here known today as the Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California, a sovereign nation. Since the beginning of time and for thousands of years before the arrival of any other people, the Washoe lived here and cared for this place. With values and intention that we can all learn from, on behalf of the City Council, I would like to acknowledge, thank, and honor the indigenous Washoe tribal communities that are the past, present, and future stewards of the Lake Tahoe Basin. Great, and with that, we'll take roll call.
Councilmember Robbins?
Here.
Councilmember Wallace?
Here.
Councilmember Cregan?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Friedrich?
Here.
Mayor Bass?
Here.
All present.
All right, and then a closed session report. We didn't have one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did not have a closed session, so there's no report.
Great. All right. And with that, we will move on to our proclamation recognizing January 2024 as National Stalking Awareness Month. And Ms. Heather Anderson and Chelsea Thomas. So I'll go ahead and read from the mic. Whereas, under the laws of all 50 states, the U.S. territories, the District of Columbia, and the federal government, stalking is a crime. And whereas 13.5 million people are stalked in a one-year period in the United States, and the majority of victims are stalked by someone they know. And whereas 3 in 4 women killed by an intimate partner have been stalked by that partner, and whereas many stalking victims lose time from work and experience serious psychological distress and lost productivity at a much higher rate than the general population. And whereas many stalking victims are forced to protect themselves by relocating, changing their identities, changing jobs, and obtaining protection orders, and whereas more victims are stalked using technology such as cell phones, text messages, social media platforms, internet posts, emails, and electronic tracking, that not using any technology, whereas there is a need for great public awareness about the nature of criminality and potential lethality of stalking, and whereas criminal justice systems can enhance their responses to stalking by regular training and throughout investigation and prosecution of the crime. And whereas laws and public policies must be continually adopted to keep pace with the new tactics used by stalkers. And whereas communities can better combat stalking by adopting multidisciplinary responses by teams of local agencies and organizations and providing more and better victim services. And whereas the City of South Lake Tahoe is joining forces with victim service providers, criminal justice officials, and concerned citizens throughout the City of South Lake Tahoe and the United States of America to observe National Stalking Awareness Month. Now, therefore, the City Council of the City of South Lake Tahoe does hereby proclaim January 2024 as National Stalking Awareness Month and applaud the efforts of the many victim service providers, law enforcement officers, prosecutors, national and community organizations, and private sector supporters for their efforts in promoting awareness about stalking. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so we will move on to public communication. This is the public's opportunity to speak on any topic not listed on this agenda. Comments shall be limited to 4 minutes. In accordance with the Brown Act, the City Council cannot deliberate or vote on any matter raised under public communications, but may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed. So, Mr. Teixeira.
Good evening, Mayor Bass, members of council. On behalf of Tahoe Chamber, I'm Steve Teixeira, and I'm also here this evening on behalf of a group of business and community organizations who want to share some thoughts with you this evening. I understand that some polling is going out from the city, and I wanted to share with you some of our thoughts about the poll based on the questions we understand. But first, I'd like to talk about the good things the council does, the good direction stuff. In the last couple of years, you have stepped up and really supported your fire department, opened a station, provided additional equipment, and really supported the team that protects all of us. And the same goes for the police department. You helped them with their facilities. You provided some new equipment. These are really positive things because we look back to 1965 when the city was formed, police, fire. The other thing you've really done well is roads. You have a terrific public works department. They're doing a great job of the roads, even in the face of a nasty winter last year, which really did a lot of damage. But there's some things going on now that we may not think are as good as those solid things. And those are the issues that we wanted to address tonight. And before I finish, there's people in the room I think would like to speak to you on this under public comment, but there's others who may not be willing to speak or don't want to speak, but they could stand to show their support of these concerns. The vacancy tax is a real concern. And in reading the ballot summary, in my experience, I don't think I've ever seen a ballot measure, and it's probably happened, I just haven't seen it. But it actually includes the ability to spend the money on fighting the litigation that should occur or could occur if the measure is passed. We think that the list of things that could be paid for is sort of like the kitchen sink. It's all in there. And you know, the city has to remember that it can't always be stepping up for taxes. I believe that the school district's going to come forward with a bond measure. They are in real need of improvements to their facilities. So sometimes the city or any of the rest of us would say, you know, it's not our turn. We'll let somebody else have a turn. And it's tough economic times, too. We know that. The TOT increase is something that we're going to oppose as well. And the minimum wage discussion is a real concern. A lot of people, not only businesses in the city, but businesses in the adjacent communities are saying, if you do that, you know, it's going to affect us as well. So we'd like to see you focus on the good things that you do. And, you know, it's hard on housing, it's hard on transportation, but you have partners, including those of us in the private sector, to rely upon. So we hope that in the course of the polling and the course of the events going forward, we just want to let you know those are the things that we're going to respond to the poll by saying, we don't support the vacancy tax, we don't support the TOT increase, we don't support the minimum wage, but we do think there are some good things that the city is doing, but stay on the right path and don't deviate. So if there are people here who agree with these points of view, they could stand unless they want to come up and speak. And on behalf of the group, we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Teixeira. All right, and who would like to give public comment next? All right, go right ahead.
Tom Spencer. I live on 1731 Venice Drive here in the city of South Lake Tahoe. I just want you to know that I'm strongly opposed to the vacancy tax, and I just think that it divides our city. It's an egregious effort by some people to take a group that doesn't have a vote and take their income and redistribute it. They should have a vote on that. But if they don't live here full-time, then they're not registered to vote here. So I have most of my comments in a letter. I'd like to drop that with someone. City clerk. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, who would like to, Mr. Kurtzweiler?
Good evening, everybody. Just a little brief introduction on what I'm going to talk about tonight. This is based on observations with personal experience and observations from licensed physicians and doctors. And I'd like to talk tonight about how certain drugs and alcohol affect your decision-making. You 5 people are making decisions for this entire community that will affect this community for the long future, and you need to be at your utmost and best. And I speak for this from experience also. My name is Kenny, and I'm an alcoholic and drug addict. In 1986, I spent 31 days in the Roseville Hospital, the first 3 days in a coma due to drugs and alcohol living in this town. I have been clean and sober since, and I expect my public officials to do the same. Does alcohol affect your decision-making? Altered perception and processing of information. Alcohol can affect how the brain processes information and cognitive function, making it difficult to accurately assess situations. This can lead to poor decisions based on misinterpretation or misunderstanding of the information at hand. Do prescription drugs affect your decision-making? Drugs interrupt the process of making choices by identifying a decision, gathering information, and evaluating alternative resolutions known as decision-making. Does marijuana influence your decision-making? Marijuana is the most widely used substance among young adults. Frequent marijuana use has been associated with impairments in cognitive flexibility and inhibition, both of which play important roles in decision-making. I expect my city council, even though I don't live in the city, to be completely clean and sober when they are making decisions affecting this entire community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kurtzweiler. Who would like to step up next? Mr. Pini.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, city staff that's here. My name is Lou Perini. I've been in business here, was in business here for 42 years. I've been to meetings on the alphabet soup of all the agencies in town, starting with the city, the county, STPUD, that I was fortunate enough to be a member of that board for 4 years. I'm pretty up to speed, I think, without self-patronizing myself here, on what goes on and how you conduct meetings and how you hear from the public. In November, I had an opportunity to address the Planning Commission, and on the agenda that day for the Planning Commission were 2 items. One was disposed of in about 10 minutes. The second one was the item that I was at the commission meeting for, and it concerned the removal of over 400 trees 18 inches in diameter or larger, construction of a road of around 1.5 miles. And I was the only member of the public there to speak for or against that project. I had called staff, city council, or planning department staff prior to the meeting to get more information. Wasn't able, I got through, left a message, nobody did get back to me, which Mr. Hitchcock acknowledged at the meeting that he didn't get back to me. So I had 3 minutes to give my thoughts on 470 pages and numerous documents, environmental documents, CEQA documents, California Environmental Quality Act documents, and I had 3 minutes to make my presentation. About 2.5 minutes in, and I tried to do it in 3 minutes, I asked for 1 additional minute. 1. And I'm the only member of the public there to speak for or against the item. And I was denied that. Now, I understand in the past, the Planning Commission has been sort of a stepping stone to higher office to get some experience, but it didn't seem like the Planning Commission knew anything about this project. They didn't know any detail other than the headlines. They had a cursory look, apparently, at the summary, and that was about it. They gave me maybe 3 minutes in denial, an extra minutes to speak on this subject. I was in favor of the project, actually. I was against the location. I was against the location because of the animal corridor. I was against the location because locations were available that were environmental stream zones that could have been eliminated by this project. And none of that was even considered or even talked about by any of the commission members, and not a peep from them when the commission chair denied me an extra minute. It was a very bad performance by the Planning Commission. Now, I know this is a voluntary position, hard to get qualified candidates to do it, but I think they're out there, I think they're available, and I think there's people that can do a better job than your existing commission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Perini. All right, anybody else to give public comment? All right, Ms. Soderson.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and staff. Melissa Soderston, Director, Tahoe Forest Matter. I'm here today to speak to you again about logging, sawmills, and biomass, and to voice the collective objection to these unscientific and polluting non-solutions from Tahoe Forest Matter, Eco Integrity Alliance, and the John Muir Project. Science has showed clearly through numerous peer-reviewed studies, including some funded by the USFS and CAL FIRE, that thinning is causing long-term harm to forest resilience to climate and fire while doing nothing to protect life, property, and infrastructure during extreme fire. Current terminology includes the overuse of forest health. However, there is little difference between these projects and destructive thinning, often bid out to the very same commercial logging companies. Already, we have one sawmill on the Nevada side, one proposed for El Dorado County, and two proposed for Placer County. TRPA and CTC have both recently discussed biomass with glee, facilities which the Center for Biological Diversity calls a huge threat and massively polluting even at small scale. Each of these proposals puts Tahoe forests at risk for a very long time. More recent studies have pointed to logging as the single greatest threat to our forests, worse than fire, climate, and bark beetles. Yet billions are still being directed to these landscape-scale projects with the Forest Service's top scientist has said they don't work. In contrast, almost no funding is available for community-wide infrastructure hardening, proven to protect life and property during extreme fire. We ask this council to adopt a firm stance against logging, focused only on home-out hardening rather than forest-in as they have been doing so far, and an adamant no to biomass of any scale. We would be happy to come back with a full presentation, and I thank you again for your time today.
Great, thank you. Anybody else that would like to give public comment? All right, yes, please come forward.
Thank you. Good evening. My name's Eric Asbury. I appreciate the opportunity for you guys allowing me to speak today. I'm the owner of South Lake Tahoe Electric here in town, and my wife, Riley, in the audience. She is a trauma ICU nurse. We've both been full-time residents of South Lake Tahoe since 2017, and we do not own a second home. This is why I'm against the vacancy tax. Second homeowners who do not occupy their home and use it for family, etc., are a vacation town's #1 asset. They do not use local resources like full-time owners and renters, but they pay the same amount of property taxes. They do not put their kids in schools, which uses up resources like teachers, school buses, and school buildings, etc. They do not drive on our roads 300 plus days a year, which obviously causes wear and tear, potholes, etc. When families come here, they are on vacation. They support the local businesses and restaurants much more than the locals. Because this is a second home, they don't do their own snow removal. They don't fix anything on their houses themselves. They hire local businesses. So those second vacant homes employ local businesses to take care of every aspect of their home. Many vacation resorts towns will tell you that second home owners who do not rent out their homes are a diamond in the rough. They spend more money than any other class owner or resident, but don't use any of the infrastructure that costs the town money. So why in the world do we propose a $6,000 fine and penalty for our most lucrative type of owner in the city? First owner, second homeowner, it doesn't matter. They still contribute to the city. So why would Scott Robbins, and this is the first time I've seen him in person, and want to hurt them? Second topic is Scott's $23 an hour minimum wage. As most of you know, this will destroy our town. Plain and simple, businesses can't afford it. 2023 was devastating to local businesses, and many closed. Lack of tourism, historic inflation, historic interest rate hikes, which affects all Tahoe businesses. $23 an hour is very close to $29 an hour, and then before you know it, it costs the business itself. The majority of businesses in town are owned by locals, so why on earth would Scott want to put them out of business? I wrote a couple notes here in addition. Do I have some time remaining? Okay, I see I do. Scott Robbins writing national articles telling tourists to stay home and don't visit, I believe hurts us tremendously, and it seems like a conflict of interest. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Yes, thank you. Come forward.
Hi, and thank you also for letting me speak today, too. My name is Jan McCarthy. I'm with the Stardust Lodge in the Americana Village. So I'm coming at it, obviously, from TOT tax and the minimum wage. And I'm against the vacancy tax, for sure. But, for example, tonight, this is one of our high seasons. We're charging $139. That's really low. So if you take off the 12% TOT and the TID, that amounts to 22, well, if you add that in, that's 22.18. So back in the old days, you could say, our rate tonight is 139, and then you hand them a bill for 161, because that's what it is right now, 12% plus the 550. But now, when they book through Expedia and Bookings.com, which is 75% of our bookings is online now, so they don't see the 139. They see the 161. So you guys get $22 out of that, $22.18 out of that, brings us back to the 139. But then 75% of the time I have to pay Expedia and Bookings.com, and they're 25% and 15%, approximately 50-50. So that's another almost $21 if it's 15% commission. In the old days, we would pay travel agents and it might be 25%. Now it's the other way. We get 25% walk-ins. So, what's killing us? Mother Nature, nobody can do much about that. But inflation, obviously, how much can you guys do about that? But recognize where we are. I mean, we don't have the money. And so to continue to raise taxes when we're struggling so much. I have approximately 60 employees, and who's my biggest competitor? Barton. And I don't know how they're going to make it and expand like they are, given if we don't have tourists come back. I mean, this is just the worst timing to continue to crush us with taxes. And, I get people, we try all the time, we get B-backs all the time, and we tell them, here's our card, next time call us, so we don't have to pay the 25% and the 15%. Call us directly, get a better rate. It just goes right over their heads, because this younger generation will be 2 blocks from the Stardust or Americana. They'll be like, oh, let's stay at that place, and they book it online, and then drive 2 blocks to us. And we still have to pay that, because they're used to going online. I can't change that. And so I'm just asking to recognize where we are. Maybe in the future this has to be done, but right now we're just being crushed. So if at 139 in high season, if I have to pay 15%, we get $118. If I pay 25%, which is 50% of the time, I get $104. What does it cost me to rent a room? It's about $50. My payroll is half our income. And I have approximately 60 employees. So I'm just trying to express that we're dealing with a generational issue, which means I have to do online stuff, costs me more. The fact that I'm selling a room tonight for $139 is pitiful. And I'm just saying, please have some mercy. And thank you. Minimum wage, that's just crazy. That's just crazy, our TOT tax.
Thank you, Ms. McCarthy. If you guys don't mind, just try keeping the clapping. If you want to wave your hand, stand up, that'd be better for us, just so we can keep the process moving.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for having all of us. My name's Rich Bodine. I'm the Director of Operations at Hotel Azure. I've been working in the tourist industry here for the 20 years that I've lived in town. I was also the president of the Lodging Association when we did get Measure P-Pass, which was, our self-imposed hike on the TOT to get the rec center, which is finally going to break ground, which is awesome. But even that, we were very transparent with that and what the money was going to. And with the way that the amendment's written in the TOT increase, this money is going to go into the black hole and really just disappear. I think it's very cowardly to kind of do it that way, to try to pass the buck onto the tourists and to just get more money. It's one thing if it is earmarked and it's going to actually go to what it says in the mailer, what's actually going to be spent on, but we have no idea. As far as the vacancy tax, I think that is just ridiculous. It's basically theft for homeowners, for people who are successful and can afford a second home up here. And they have no say in the matter whatsoever. And it's the fact that you have written into them that you are going to fight. How much of the taxpayers' money? What's the point of doing it if you're just going to spend all that money and fight litigation? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. As far as the minimum wage hike, obviously, I think most of us in this town are underpaid, and that's just kind of how stuff works. But forcing it down people's throats is, at my property, I am not an owner. I'm not even the general manager. I'm the director of operations. But I know that would kill it. You would be causing more unemployment than what you would actually be helping. And yeah, I'm against all of these taxes. And thank you for letting me speak.
Great. Is there any other, yes, Angie, or, yeah.
Hi, everybody. Excuse me. I'm Angie Regan. I'm here to advocate with all of my heart for peace and love in Tahoe, but also for peace and love in this world. As we welcome international guests to visit Lake Tahoe, and as some make Tahoe their forever home, I hope we can all start to open our eyes beyond Lake Tahoe with a vision and heart that expands from this community to the rest of this world. I'm here to ask my city council to join other cities throughout the country to help urge President Biden and Congress to call for a resolution for a permanent and sustainable ceasefire in Gaza, to end the government funding in Israel, to release all hostages on all sides, and to condemn anti-Semitic, anti-Palestinian, and Islamophobic rhetoric and attacks. Also to allow humanitarian aid to be let into Gaza, including essentials of food, water, fuel, shelter, and medical supplies. This, right here, right now, is the revolution of our time. If you are waiting for a more convenient one, you are going to miss the only one. Revolutions are never convenient. They come with mourning. They are thrust upon us. We do not choose them like vacations or homes. They choose us. Do not wait for history to tell you what to do. It will be too late. History is always easier and less accountable than the present moment, like now. Whatever you dream of doing on the urgent behalf of humanity, do it now, said Jaya John. Resolutions allow some people in the communities to feel seen and heard, and a resolution is simply an urgent necessity amid a huge humanitarian crisis. All I ask is that we use our voice. All I ask is for you to use your voice. As a city of South Lake Tahoe, please help us call for a ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reagan. Any other public comment in the room? Yes, please come forward.
Good evening. Seth Dalibs, live in South Lake Tahoe. Flight Deck, Tattoo Bonbon, Denny's, High Mountain Greenery, Lemon Drop, Pick Six, Beach Hut Deli, Alpina Cafe, Don's Cake by the Lake, 10X Crows, Christensen Automotive, The Bead Store, Brewery at Lake Tahoe, Chevy's, Little Philly Cheesesteaks, Swiss Chalet, Black Bear Diner, Baja Fresh, New Moon Cafe, The Spot Smoke Shop, Cosmic Tattoo, Exhale, Wild Cherries, The Flight Deck. All of these have gone out of business in the last few months. We haven't had a national recession during this time. We haven't had a stock market downturn during this time. We haven't had massive impacts of the tech industry during this time. California and South Lake Tahoe is immediately adjacent. We're 3 miles away from a state where the minimum wage is either $10.50 if you provide health insurance or $11.50 if you don't provide health insurance. Add on top of that all of the other regulatory burdens and higher cost of doing business imposed by the state of California. As Mr. Bass said a couple meetings ago, we are all one Lake Tahoe, particularly when it comes to environmental matters. But when it comes to economic matters, we're not. The folks behind me don't want more taxes. They don't want a higher minimum wage because they would like to stay in business. If you increase the minimum wage, if you increase the transit occupancy tax, and if I know that you're not directly involved with the vacancy tax, it just makes South Lake Tahoe less competitive. And as much money goes over the border today, you'll just see more of that. More jobs, more money will leave the city. So I'm against all of the taxes. I'm sure others will talk more about the occupancy tax, but the minimum wage of the three, I think, is the worst proposal and should be, and I strongly oppose it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I believe it. Who would like to go next? Mr. Gavin.
Good evening, Gavin Figer. I'm on the board of the Lake Tahoe Bicycle Coalition, and we just want to take the opportunity to thank you for clearing the paths and the sidewalks so well this year. Granted, it's been kind of a slow start to the winter, but we've seen you out in force, so everywhere from the council to, you know, making giving the direction, and the manager's office, and Public Works, and Parks and Rec, and it's just a world of difference. There's more people out, there's less people walking in the highway, there's less people trudging over ice banks to get to the bus stop, so it's like much appreciated, and hope it snows a lot and you guys are able to keep it up.
Great, thank you, Mr. Figer. Anybody else that would like to give public comment?
Hello, my name is Brennon Turon, owner of Lake Tahoe Pizza Company. We've survived 5 decades now in Lake Tahoe, and I think we all need to survive up here. Raising the minimum wage, continuing to pass more taxes, bonds, measures, calling a penny tax, a 1% increase in sales tax is no more realistic than thinking that increasing minimum wages and taxes are going to get us out of a spending problem. If the minimum wage is increased, it translates to more costs and higher prices. It means that the cost of living goes up. Businesses are running on small margins. We are not billion-dollar businesses in the city of South Lake Tahoe. I don't know where that conception comes from. I can tell you it's wrong. Increased costs will close businesses, will continue to close more businesses, and it make it more difficult to survive wildfires, which we're more likely to look at after this winter. We are experiencing a downturn in this fall and this winter. And it's going to put all of the residents and business owners in worse position to increase costs and increase the cost of living in Tahoe by trying to tax our way out of a spending problem. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else that would like to give public comment? All right, seeing, Mr. Bendel.
There is Mr. Bendel.
Sorry.
Looking better than me.
Thank you, no worries.
No, Jerry, you can go first if you like. Hi, my name's Natalie Yanish. This is Corella. She says hello. Sorry, I had to bring her here. I just wanted to tell you, I moved here from Colorado in 2002. I've had many careers in Lake Tahoe, and it's very difficult to get a foothold in the community and be able to be a homeowner. And what you guys are talking about seems to be taxes, taxes, taxes. So we've got transient occupancy tax, we've got transfer tax, we've got these taxes, other taxes, vacancy taxes. You cannot tax yourself out of the community issues. So I just hope that you take that to heart, and Corella appreciates the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yanish. All right, Mr. Bendel.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. Jerry Bendel. I'm the General Manager at Forest Suites Resort.
First of all, Steve Teixeira said it really well with the three items that we talked about. What I thought was most powerful, and I asked this group to do it again, is please stand up if you're part of our business coalition. And except for Tom, if you can stay, Tom, I know. This is our community. This is a big part of our community. We employ so many others in our community. We are a huge part of our community. We are, as a coalition, against transient occupancy tax increase. We are against the vacancy tax, and we are definitely against a minimum wage increase and discussions about it. The businesses, especially, and this is not even, mine is TOT, I'm a business owner in the hotel industry, but the $23 minimum hour increase had restaurants calling us top to bottom. They are scared. They are completely scared of even having a discussion about this. So I ask you, for these community members, that we do not discuss this for this winter and this summer and in November or in the near future. We will work together with you to solve our community problems. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. Mr. Wallace.
Well, it's all pretty well been said. My name is Dwayne Wallace. I'm the CEO of the South Tahoe Chamber of Commerce, and I'm a proud member of the coalition that includes both chambers of commerce. People said it couldn't be done, but we're back together again. The band is back together. The Lodging Association, the Board of Realtors, restaurants, the Tahoe Keys Properties Association, and others that are calling, and people that I even haven't met in this room have come on board. I think because there's an overall sense that we've been mischaracterized as some sort of big corporations when we're just people. And the people that we employ are family to us. I opened a restaurant here in '74, and so many of them worked for me all 16 years that we had that. Tamara and I ran 7 motels, small motels at one time. Those people we still keep in contact. Some of them married each other, and we still babysit their kids. This is a community that has survived because we all pitch in together. We're not some big multinational corporations, and if there are a few, good, God love them. I'm glad they did it. But in 1988 was the first time I got involved in affordable housing. It was part of a group called Renaissance 90. And Kerry Miller was the city manager then, and we worked on putting together different groups. And mine was, how come the utility district's sewer fees were so high? And so I went and met with the district, became involved, just kind of like Leadership Lake Tahoe, gets you involved, and ended up running for that board and found out that there were a lot of ways that government can save money and work well together. What Steve said that I think is important is this group is formed, and we are going to oppose these taxes. We're going to vigorously oppose these things. However, we can vigorously work together to find some other ways to help support our community. We've only got one horse to ride right now, and that's tourism. But when I was elected to the utility district, that didn't make me an engineer, didn't make me a wastewater engineer. I was just a citizen who needed expert advice. Unfortunately, none of you are yet economic analysis people. You're not economists. So get the advice before you do anything, and my advice is don't do it because we don't want to fight. We want to work together to grow our community. There's so many of us here that chase down your hat when it flies off at the ball field. We're the ones who hand out gift certificates all the time. We're the ones who frequent your restaurants and your establishments and buy your construction. We're not bad people, but to vilify and to to attack the business community is unacceptable. And what Jerry said is true. My phone is just ringing off the hook. And contrary to what anybody believes, I'm a volunteer. I don't get paid to do the chamber job. I do it because I love our town. But I had to take the day off today because my phone rang so much. Because so many people are afraid that their last little bit of profit, if you can call it that, is going to be taken away because they don't have the money to pay. So please consider that in your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. All right, is there any other public comment in the room? Mr. Davis.
And yes, I am standing up, thank you. Tom Davis, South Lake Tahoe. I lived here since 1971. I just want to remind everybody on taxes, property taxes have gone up. If you paid your electricity tax the other day, or electricity went up, and your insurance on your property, mine went up from $2,000 a year to $7,000 for my house. Electricity is $180 a month now, and gas is $400 and some dollars a month. You know, we're all your constituents, Scott. Well, I think a couple people might have voted for you here, but I'm not sure. But we represent all of us, not just a select few. So please understand that. This is your citizens, your town too, along with our town. So I suggest to you, please don't raise any more taxes. Our taxes alone in this town are just gone crazy, and expenses. You that have a rental home are going to have to pay this insurance on your house and the utilities on your house all together. It's getting really expensive to live here for us that are retired in our town. And I am absolutely against a vacancy tax. I'll give you a quick little story. I have a lady has a house down in Lakeview Avenue, and she got cancer this summer. She got breast cancer. And I go to their house every Thursday when we do the Lakeview Commons Live at Lakeview. And they haven't been there all summer because she was getting treatment. We're going to take her house away from her? That's not American. Please, please, Scott, don't put a vacancy tax on. It's going to ruin our town. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else in the room that would like to give public comment? Mr. Moser. Kenny, you've already spoken. I'm sorry, you can't speak twice in public comment. But Mr. Moser is right behind you. Sorry about that.
Third time's the charm. Ed Moser, South Lake Tahoe. Yeah, I have spoken out against the vacancy tax for a number of reasons, and the biggest one too is shouldn't waste time or energy or resources until the courts actually decide on the San Francisco case. Berkeley and Oakland are sitting waiting in the wings to see how that plays out. They're not wasting their money really to any extent. And that's going to be several years, a number of years, probably end up in the state Supreme Court at least, and to be settled. So, I think it's moot point to even discuss that now, and shouldn't waste time and resources on it for, just for that reason alone is enough. You have a lot of the vacant homes and second homes because of your VHR ordinance. I stood up in 2003 when put it in place. 2004, the next year, I showed up at the council meeting there on Todd Lane, showed them we were on the cover of the magazine, and we were in the top 5 in the country for rise in property and home sales. And I said, that's what's going to happen. You're going to destroy, because we're a gaming community. People were working at casinos primarily a lot, and motels. So that really set the rate for property values here. So as soon as people were able to come in and rent them out, make VHRs, create VHRs, the values went up. They were turning them over left and right in the Tahoe Keys. They were buying and selling. A pediatrician from Barton stood up and bragged about owning 17 places in the Keys, condos and homes. So, that's where things went haywire and off the bat. So, maybe go back and get realtors and brokers' fees, put a back tax on that, and solve a lot of the problems here. During the pandemic, a lot of tourists were here. They came up, they raided our supermarkets. They walked around without masks, infected a lot of employees. I'd go into Railways by me there at State Line at Crescent V, and, every week there'd be 1 or 2 people not working there anymore. And they were sick, some didn't come back, some would come back 2-3 months later. So a lot of them moved out of town, or just quit the jobs. Some moved down to the valley below, others moved to Sacramento and Bay Area, other places. So we lost a lot of people, lost a lot of business. And really, that really infected the town, because if tourists come up, motels were open, they were running. It wasn't just for workers that were needed, necessary workers or anything. People were coming up bringing their own bedding and pillows, getting out of their cars and going to the motels by me in my neighborhood in droves, and places were running 60-70% full. So, we lost a lot of people there, and things started going downhill. The visitor experience here, e-scooters, now e-bikes, pisses a lot of people off. The pedestrians are trying to walk down the sidewalks. They're not allowed on the sidewalks. They're not allowed on shared use paths, but yet you do. There's zero enforcement. Police chief said you could enforce it. I haven't seen any. And you really anger a lot of people. So over the years, create a good visitor experience. They'll come back. People with more money will come. We lost a lot of them because of, through redevelopment, false promises and lies. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. Anybody else in the room? Yes, please come forward.
Thank you for letting me talk. I'm on the vacancy tax and the minimum wage. The vacancy tax is, when is it going to stop? My wife and I have a house in Placerville and Tahoe. We have a 2-wheel drive car that I pay taxes on, registration, insurance, and everything. We don't drive it in the winter. We park it in Placerville. Are you going to charge a vacancy tax on my car now, or am I going to have to loan it out to somebody that doesn't have a car, or what? I mean, when does it stop? It's getting ridiculous. And for the minimum wage, nobody here discussed that you say you got to have a living wage. Well, minimum wage is for people starting out of high school, or starting out in high school, or starting out, at the bottom. It's not meant to support a household in South Lake Tahoe. $23 an hour is ridiculous. I lost my job, got laid off, and started a job driving a concrete truck. I got a Class A license. I started out like $20 an hour. So you're going to be, and I worked my way up to $30 an hour. I stuck with it. I volunteered for things. People flipping hamburgers with no experience, they're not going to have any incentive. People that are making $20 an hour, now they're going to have to pay them $25, $30 an hour. It's ridiculous. And I just thank you for letting me talk. And
thank you. Any other public comment in the room? All right, seeing none, we will go to our Zoom platform.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and open up our Zoom platform for anyone who wants to provide public comment on any topic not on today's agenda. Go ahead and hit the raise hand button or *9. There are no additional public comments at this time, Mayor.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. I would like to clarify, one thing. This council did vote 4-1 against putting a vacancy tax. This is a citizens' initiative that's being proposed, so I just wanted to put that on the record for the public's efficacy. Thank you. Moving on.
Just real quick, I just in general just thank the public for coming out tonight. We're in the process of evaluating which ballot measure or measures, not including the vacancy tax, which is a citizens initiative, to offer to the voters in the fall, and this is part of the input that we'll definitely take into consideration. So I just wanted to thank everyone for speaking out tonight, and we're definitely listening, so thank you.
Great, moving on. We are going to move on to our presentations and get a geographical...
Actually, right now we have commissioner
Excuse
reports,
me.
if there's any commissioners in the audience.
And seeing no commissioners, all right, we will move on to our presentations. This will be from Mr. Ryan Milhowski. I believe I said that right.
You did pretty close, yeah. It's a hard one. My middle name's even worse. All right. Good evening, Mayor and Council, city staff, attendees. My name is Ryan Milhowski, and I am the...
Can we give you just a minute, Ryan, as people are leaving for the sound? So
all right, no worries.
All right, I think we're probably good to go. Thanks.
No worries. Well, again, good evening, Mayor, Council, city staff, and attendees. My name is Ryan Milhowski, and I am the city's sole GIS analyst. I was asked here to give a presentation about the services that GIS provides to the city and the citizens and visitors.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Hey, if you guys want to talk, could you please head outside? We are trying to conduct our meeting. Thank you.
Good, all right. So a quick overview, what I'm going to be presenting about. I'm going to go through my background, how the city started this GIS program, what the current conditions are, and a quick look to the future of what GIS is bringing to the city. So my background, I started in the city in October of 2019, right before COVID, and I'm a Sacramento native, but Lake Tahoe has always been my second home. This is the second place I spent most of my time. I hold a degree in GIS and planning from Sac State. I have over 13 years of professional public service between the city of Sacramento and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Sacramento District. I hold my GIS professional certification. I also hold a FAA Part 107 remote pilot license that I can use within the city here. And I've also co-written a GIS textbook. So what is GIS? I mean, it's maps, right? But that's just the tip of the iceberg. GIS is a large collection of tools that can be used individually or combined to solve complex problems while creating a multiplier effect in work output. It sits at the intersection of technology and the real world, empowering an individual or a team to gain data-driven insights about locations or assets. So just kind of go through an exercise of how GIS can add value to data. I have here a simple table of temperatures from sensors around the area. So we have a high of 60, a low of 42, an average of 53. I mean, these are great insights, but why is there such a large range? It kind of leaves you asking more questions to get better insights on the data. Oh, there we go. So when you map these out, we start seeing trends. Even if you didn't know that we had a mountainous terrain around here, you can see a grouping of colder sensors closer to each other in the top right corner, and that we know that's the top of Heavenly. Of course, it makes sense based off its location that it would have colder temperatures than down in the valley here. This is a prime example of the first law of geography. Just like in real estate, sometimes it's about location, location, location. So quick history about GIS within the city. The first GIS analyst position was created in 2010 when there was defined need within public works. The first major integration of GIS into a city system was in 2015. I started in 2019. In 2020, I introduced the concept of an enterprise GIS. It's a centralized system that can support the whole city, and I started expanding my integrations. Today, I broadened what GIS is for the city. I support every department in the city, and I act as the output multiplier. So moving into the future, data is only going to grow with fixed point and mobile sensors increasing in number and decreasing in cost and size. These new systems being used are exposing APIs, they're creating new intelligence, and citizens and visitors want more from their government and actionable data. GIS is poised to help make that happen. Speaking of data, here are some statistics about how GIS is used within the city and how it's used by the public. My current on-premises GIS server handles over 1 million requests a year from city staff. I manage over 250 data sets that continues to grow. Over 3 million records of data for over 100 gigabytes of information. And publicly, we have our data viewed 250,000 times a year, and I have over 150 maps, apps, and data sets available to the public in the cloud. So this is a quick list of city systems that the GIS integrates into. GIS data is in every police officer's phone, cruiser, and computer. It's in every firefighter's phone, every fire truck. This data is foundational to public safety. It's also in our 911 dispatch center. This data is also part of our code enforcement arm. GIS is foundational to the public works work order, service request, and asset management system. Not only does GIS integrate and collaborate with every department within the city, but I also collaborate with over 19 agencies, groups, and companies to share data and knowledge. In November, I led a half-day user group at the community college that had over 40 people in-person attendees and 60 people online. They range from college-age students to representatives from large tech companies. A quick example of this collaboration and how it helps citizens and visitors today is when we close a road due to ice or snow conditions, or if we have our farmers market on ski run, live at Lakeview on Lake Avenue. I report those closures to Waze and Google Maps, and within 15 minutes, those closures are live. So when people are routing from Heavenly after a stormy day, they're not going to be sent down Keller. So I've gone through a high level of how GIS is utilized within the city and numerous systems that it's touched, but let me talk about the capabilities I provide. Of course, GIS is known for mapping, small maps, large poster size maps, but I also create online maps, apps, dashboards. I have a survey grade GPS and total station, and I have also a surveying drone, which I can create high resolution aerial photography and 3D models. Data science is a large portion of my work. A lot of the questions that are asked of me are not of maps, but asking for figures and datas. How many vacant residential parcels do we have within a half mile of the highway? I can tell you that in a few minutes with my software. Anything that I do, or because I'm a sole resource, anything that I do that is repeatable, I make automatable. I automate a lot of my job. It happens when I sleep. I provide tools and solutions that enhance workflows, that create a multiplier effect, and help create data-centric websites like our CAP tracker. The software that the GIS utilizes has over 160 off-the-shelf solutions that are pre-built and ready to deploy within our internal systems. My data also integrates into Microsoft Office, AutoCAD, and Adobe Creative Cloud. So now you've heard some capabilities of GIS. Let's look at specific examples of how GIS made tasks easy, accurate, accessible, and provide high value. Recently, with the help of a local intern, we were able to complete a large effort in creating a modern stormwater network inventory using one of those off-the-shelf solutions from my GIS software. Over 7,600 assets were digitized with 143,000 attributes put to those assets using as-built information and field surveys. This data is publicly accessible on the city's website, and it helps keep Lake Tahoe blue. So last winter, we all know we had a record snow. It was a pain to remove all that snow, but it was also a pain for our firefighters because we had a large amount of burst water pipes reported, and they're the reporting agency to be able to shut those off. I got a call at 9 a.m. from my counterpart at STPUD saying, we have water valves breaking. We have information that can help the firefighters locate these valves because it's under feet of snow. With my GIS software, I was able to create a solution in 2 hours. I received the data at 10 a.m. I was able to build the application, test it, and deploy it onto our fire trucks and have it go live. But last but not least, I developed a semi-automated solution for defensible space inspections within the city. As the council may be aware, the system won the top award in the Exemplary Systems in Government Awards by ERISA last year. And ERISA is a professional GIS organization. I took a wholly paper-driven data manual process and utilized GIS software and IT software that we already owned and gave iPads into inspectors instead of a clipboard and a stack of paper. Using the iPad, the inspector not only puts the data into our inspection database, but automatically is uploaded to TRCD and CAL FIRE straight from the iPad. I don't have to touch it. It also creates a nice looking PDF report that's automatically uploaded into the fire department SharePoint. And it creates an address label that can be printed out and stuck on an envelope. So while I didn't take the paper out of this whole process, I took the pen out of this process. And all of this is to keep the inspectors out in the field, interacting with the citizens and educating them on how to make their homes and communities safer from wildfire. So moving forward, what are some of the big things that are coming up in GIS? Well, I was working on a snowplow service tracker that will be deployed soon that will be able to enable citizens to know when was the last time their street was plowed. I'm also working with development services on a new streamlined permitting system that will utilize GIS heavily as its foundational data set. And I'm also working on automating our mandatory environmental reporting for street sweeping by leveraging new vehicle monitoring systems that the city has purchased. So that's just a quick hit of how GIS is utilized within the city. And I hope the takeaway from this is GIS isn't just maps, it's solutions. And thanks. And if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Or you can email me. I can talk your ear off about this.
Well, thank you so much, Mr.
Malhosky, yes.
Malhosky. That was just incredibly informative. I had no idea, honestly, how much that was integrated throughout the city and how important it is. So thank you. Any questions from council? Yes. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Friedrich.
So cool. Ryan, thanks for the presentation. I guess one question is, if money wasn't an object and you had all the budget you could have, like, what are other capabilities that you could envision bringing to the city and the GIS department? Would it be more staff help? Would it be more tools? Or do you feel like you have what you need to do the jobs at hand?
I think, it's a common refrain from a lot of people, but more staff would be great. I'm the only person that does GIS within the city, so unfortunately when I take a vacation, GIS kind of takes a vacation too, but I'm monitoring from wherever I'm at. I see a lot of workflows. We have a lot of older workflows that we currently, perform, and GIS can help modernize those workflows. The defensible space inspection is a great example of that, where we took this process that seemed easy enough, and I just multiplied that, just by involving my technology. But it's, I only have so many hours in a day, so many hours in a year, so to be able to have a resource to handle kind of like the lower level work that I have to do, because a lot of the work I have is data cleaning. The data I get from all these agencies, I have to go through to make sure it melds into our system correctly and doesn't bring down our production environment, so want to make sure that happens. But a lot of that's still just manual, got to enter in addresses, got to enter in this information, and I would love to have somebody help me with that.
Great. Mr. Robbins.
On that topic, I believe we have an open requisition for a GIS/asset management intern that was posted on social media even recently.
Yes.
It's been on government jobs for a while. Is that would that be someone for
Yes,
your department, right?
Yes, that would be the same intern position that helped me create the stormwater network.
Is an intern the right level of staff that you need, or or do you need someone who is a full-time? Interns are full-time, but as someone who is a more senior position, is that the right allocation?
Yeah.
The right requisition?
I would think the intern helps me out with a lot of summer activities, going out and seeing things, being out in the field. I need somebody that's more interested in GIS. People that come up to Tahoe, they want to be outside. They want to be working out in recreation or like being a firefighter. They don't want to sit at a computer and like enter in data, you know? So it's hard to kind of find that in an intern. We were very lucky, very, very lucky that Tyler Anderson, my previous intern, just went headfirst into it. But trying to get an intern that has the amount of GIS need, you know, the chops that I need to be able to help support me, it's just not there in the local community.
The intern requisition, if I recall reading what I read right, was that it was looking for a high school graduate who might be in college now in a GIS or computer-related field, if I recall correctly. Has there been any effort to reach out to the Tahoe STEM Academy, which is mostly high school students, but, you know, they graduate?
Yes.
And that would be a place to find an unusual concentration of computer-oriented talent in South Lake Tahoe. Now, that may be too young of a pool, but I don't know if they have high school seniors or people have gone through that program and are graduating seniors in the year, that sort of thing. That might be a resource to get connected to our small pool of computer nerds, which is not zero.
No, it's not zero. But the intersection of GIS with the, you know, that like data science is hard to find. But I haven't thought about STEM. I know David works a lot over there. So that'll be definitely one of the resources I lean on. I lean on the community college, UNR, Sac State, and a couple other places to kind of see if I can get regional people.
Great.
So that might be a thing for Joe in your office, for the recruiting department to take a look at, reaching out to the STEM Academy, seeing if, just also being letting local current high school students know that there are jobs locally in the technology domain with the city is something I suspect might not be an obvious thing to think about. That
Certainly.
If you're a bright high school student, you're in computers, there are actual jobs here in town that is in that field of interest. So reaching out to the STEM Academy and saying, look, these are career paths that might interest the people in this program, I think would be a worthwhile thing to do.
Great.
So I don't know, Joe, if that's something you can take as an action.
Thank you so
We already
much.
talked to the high school, and we're in communication with David Weiss.
Excellent.
Thank you for the great presentation, and now we will take public comment. I'll start out on Zoom.
And Mayor, during Ryan's presentation, we were notified that Ms. Ballard had wanted to give a comment. She was under public communications. Could we allow her to speak?
Absolutely.
And then go back to public comment on this? Okay.
Absolutely.
Ms. Ballard, you have 4 minutes with council. Go ahead.
Thank you. I have a couple issues here. On the city packet agenda, the Zoom link is different and doesn't work. I had to go to the Spanish agenda to get on this meeting. I could not raise my hand on my computer, and I could not raise my hand on my iPad. I finally got on my phone and was able to finally raise my hand. So, and I can't just hop in an Uber and come down to the city council meeting because it's not accessible to me. I live on $25,000 a year because I'm disabled and on Social Security. And I really appreciated like you guys having a packed house talking about what people don't want. I would love if there was a packed house of people to talk about and get more affordable housing so the employees that they want to pay less than $20 an hour can afford to live here. Dwayne Wallace was the only person who even mentioned affordable housing. I would love us to find a solution so I can continue to live here. I've been here 30 years, and it's getting harder and harder for me to find an affordable place to live. And so I would like to see all those people who employ employees up here help find solutions to get affordable housing up here. But they're just coming to say what they don't want to do. And so it's super frustrating to me. It's super frustrating when I can't get on Zoom and I can't raise my hand. And there's many disabled people in this community who can't access, and that may be why you didn't have as many Zoom speakers, is because the agenda packet Zoom link does not work. I had to go to the Spanish version to get on the meeting at all, and then I couldn't raise my hand. So the affordable housing isn't moving forward fast enough. There are so many people who work for all those small businesses who are leaving because they can't afford to either buy a house up here or find a rental anymore that they can afford on what they're making up here. So I would like to hear more how we could fast-pace affordable housing up here. The last thing is, I also agree with Angie Regan about doing a resolution and making a statement as a city to stop the humanitarian crisis and call for a ceasefire in Gaza. Thank you for letting me speak. I beg you to make these meetings more accessible. Make sure the writing on your agendas are correct. I want to live up here in Tahoe for the rest of my life. And the people who are getting older living up here also need these things I'm fighting for with disability up here. And so I just want affordable housing up here, and I wish you'd get a packed house of all those businesses fighting for affordable housing up here and saying, instead of saying no on what they don't want. Let's hear them fighting about how to help their employees be able to stay up here. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Ballard. All right.
Okay, now we'll move to our Zoom public commenters on agenda item 2. On today's agenda, go ahead and hit the raise hand button or *9. We have Ms. Neff.
Hello, I want to speak on number 9 in the consent agenda. Should I be waiting until you call number 9?
Yeah, right now we're just taking public comment on agenda item 2.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no public comments on Zoom at this time, Mayor.
Great. Yes, Mr. Irvin.
Yeah, I just really quick, Mayor and Council, want to thank Ryan Mahalski for his presentation. He's just a perfect example of, the dedicated and good employees we have, and I appreciate his work and how he's streamlining our processes, saving us time and money so we can be more high performing, getting more done less and faster with less money. So thanks. Appreciate your work, Ryan.
Yes, absolutely. All right. We will take public comment in the room for item number 2.
Hello, Seth Daleb once again. I also want to congratulate Ryan. He does a great job. I've used a lot of his products looking for investments in the city and haven't found one yet, but it's put together well. One comment I want to make, however, is you can have all the ones and zeros correct, but the processes that touch the dirt also have to be there. Last night I was walking my dog, heard my vacant neighbor's house had a burst pipe in it and water was just pouring out. I called a non-emergency line, fire department came out, and must have been some breakdown because the firefighters that showed up came out with shovels and flashlights, and we were walking around the house trying to find where that water shutoff was for 30 plus minutes. So while he talked about how he has that data in there, I'm sure it's there. It might have been in the firefighter's phone, but something broke down there where the firefighters that showed up didn't either have that data or didn't know how to use it. Ultimately, my neighbor's place is going to get a full remodel. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Adams. Anybody else that would like to give public comment on item number 2? Seeing none, all right. We will move on to our consent agenda. Let's see. I know I have a recusal on item number 9 for a financial interest in the cannabis industry. And do we have any other?
Yep, Mr. Mayor, I think also number 4.
Excuse me, you are right. Number 4 as well, for property ownership. All right. Is there any items that anybody would like to pull from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, we will go ahead and open it up for public comment. We'll go ahead and start on our Zoom platform.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and open up our Zoom platform for anyone who wants to provide a public comment on any item on today's consent agenda. Now we have Ms. Neff. You have 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is on Helen Neff, Incline Village resident. This is on number 9, amendments to the cannabis ordinance. So I realize based on including cannabis consumption lounges as a consent agenda item that the City Council of the City of South Lake Tahoe will be approving cannabis consumption lounges without regard for the issues surrounding impaired driving or the potential for death and injury to innocent victims who are just trying to get safely from one place to another. I urge you to require more substantial and binding language to curb impaired driving beyond the one sentence in your ordinance. Which is, quote, employees must cut off service to impaired drivers and provide an option for a safe ride home, such as shuttle, taxi, or ride share service, period, unquote. Your legal counsel, cannabis businesses, and community members can surely provide enhanced requirements that will ensure safer roads. On a related subject, I hope that the City Council members and the City staff have read the very well-prepared TRPA Draft Vision Zero strategy that was released late last week, including the information on impaired driving. On page 3 of the report, there are links to the roadway safety plans for Placer, El Dorado, and Washoe County, Tahoe area, but the report states no such plan exists for the City of South Lake Tahoe. It is noted as, quote, in progress, unquote. It will be interesting to see how the issue of cannabis consumption lounges and impaired driving is covered in your roadway safety plan when it is available. And please closely study the El Dorado plan for the information on impaired driving and crashes directly adjacent to your city limits. Thank you, and please do your best to take it slow on our roads and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Neff.
Thank you, Ms. Neff. There are no additional public comments on Zoom platform.
Great, thank you. Anybody in the room that would like to give public comment on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda with the recusal stated by Mr. Bass.
Second.
That motion unanimously carries.
Great, all right, we are going to take a small 5-minute break, and we will see you back here at 6:50. All right. We are going to call this meeting back to order. All right.
Okay, Mayor, we're ready to go whenever you are.
Great. We're going to call this meeting back to order, and we are moving on to item number 10, a public hearing, the tentative map extension for 3708 Highway 50 Townhomes tentative map, file number 23131. And this is going to be Mrs. Anna Kashuba.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Sorry. I need to recuse on agenda item 10 due to a real property interest within the statutory limits of distance. I'll be outside.
Great. Thank you.
That's the first time over this.
All right. Ms. Kashuba.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Anna Kashuba, an assistant planner for the city. The item before you is agenda item number 10, a tentative map extension for 3708 Highway 50 Townhomes tentative map. I'm going to start with a little bit of background, as this project was originally approved in February of 2022 by the Planning Commission. That was a design review approval for a 14-unit multifamily development. It was approved of multifamily, but after the after the subdivision happens, they will become single-family condominiums. The development spans two parcels, 3708 Lake Tahoe Boulevard and 3709 Osgood Avenue, both of which are in the Tourist Center Mixed-Use District of the Tourist Core Area Plan. Both of those parcels add up to about 3/4 of an acre. Because the project consists of 5 or more units, the California Subdivision Map Act requires approval of a tentative map as well as a final subdivision map and a condominium plan. The tentative map was originally approved by Planning Commission on March 10th of 2022 and by City Council on April 5th of that same year, and was originally set to expire on April 5th of this year. But however, the applicant is seeking an extension as the plans are currently in review by the City Building Division. It's pretty typical for a tentative map to be extended until the plan review is complete to account for any changes that may be required. While the tentative map is a conceptual map, it does outline a few different intentions. The first is to merge the two parcels. It calls out the creation of 14 airspace condominium units. It identifies a common area, and lastly, it identifies easements for public access, private access, and public utility and emergency access. Although those designations will become legal once the final map and condominium plan are submitted and approved. Those are submitted directly to our Public Works Department and then would come before council again for approval. So in acknowledgement that the applicant is actively pursuing their building permit for this project, at the December 7th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting, the commissioners recommended that City Council grant a 24-month extension. This would make the new expiration date April 5th of 2026. Which is also the essentially the due date for filing and recording the final map. So tonight, the requested action is to pass a resolution granting a 24-month extension for 3708 Highway 50 Townhomes tentative subdivision map. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we also have the applicant on our Zoom platform if there are any questions for them. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Kashuba. Council, any questions?
Do you know, is the ultimate intended use as single-family condos or vacation rentals, do we know?
I am not aware. That will also be dependent on where the project gets their residential units of use from. If they do decide to get them on the open market, the units will be eligible to apply for vacation home rental permits. If they receive their units from the city, they will not be. But I don't know whether or not the applicant has a preference either way.
If the tourist core plan update were to not allow that two-step process, condo to vacation rental, would that affect their ability to do that, given that they're midstream in this process?
I don't believe so. That we review based on the plan that is in place at the time that we receive the application.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, thank you, Ms. Kashuba.
Thank you.
We will go to our Zoom platform.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and open up our Zoom platform for anyone who would like to provide public comment on agenda item 10. No public comments at this time, Mayor.
All right. Any public comment in the room? Mr. Moser.
Ed Moser, South Lake Tahoe. I'm opposed to this extension. And for the reasons you just kind of touched on here, this two-step process. You start out as multifamily. We'd like somebody to answer where the allocations, the multifamily allocations are coming from and single-family allocations. This is sidestepping Measure T. And it's in a commercial area or border on commercial area. But I want to go back to when this property was originally sold by the city. First of all, this California Tahoe Conservancy gifted to the city 3708 Lake Tahoe Boulevard, the larger of the two parcels bordering on Lake Tahoe Boulevard. The city turned around and then sold it to Charles German, the owner of Dark Corp Asset Management, their owner of Postmark Hotel, and was saying at the time was that he wanted to expand and put some more units there, hotel units. 3709, well, that sold for $291,015. 3709 Osgood sold for $10,000. And I asked and questioned Nancy Curry and council at the time, stood up and said, why? First of all, Ms. Curry said, quote, it's not developable. That's why they sold it for $10,000. That was owned by the Redevelopment Successor Agency. And so that money, that $10,000 had to go towards bond reduction. The $291,000 didn't have to go back to the CDC. The city got to keep that. So I said, are you raising the price of one and the value of one just because the city gets to keep the money rather than has to go out the back door, come in the front door and go out the back towards bond payments? So the 3709 sold for $10,000. So for $301,000, they got both parcels, which was a steal, an absolute steal. But like I said, Ms. Curry said the appraisal for $10,000 was because it's not developable. And now here we are, it's being developed, and there's going to be 3 of those units are going to be sitting on it. So yeah, I oppose this and oppose the whole process of going from multifamily when we need affordable housing. I mean, you're building it down by Pioneer Trail, the affordable housing units there, which is maybe quite possibly the worst place in the city to put housing. You're right between Pioneer Trail on one side and the Highway 50 on the other. Whereas a place like this, you can at least be set back off the highway a little bit, and you don't have Pioneer Trail traffic right behind you. It's a good place for affordable housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. Anybody else that would like to give public comment in the room? All right, seeing none, we will bring it back to council for a motion and or a second.
If nobody's going to discuss, I move that we pass a resolution granting a 24-month extension for 3708 Highway 50 Townhomes tentative subdivision map.
I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second, and we will vote.
That motion carries.
All right, moving on to item number 11, letter of public conveyance or necessity for Pirates Chest Tahoe LLC located at 2435 Venice Drive, Suite 107. And this will also be Ms. Anna Kashuba.
Good evening, once again, Anna Kashuba, Assistant Planner. This item is a consideration of a letter of public convenience or necessity for Pirates Chest Tahoe located at 2435 Venice Drive, Suite 107. Pirate's Chest is a food and beverage retail store located at the Tahoe Keys Marina. They currently sell prepackaged food and beverages and are looking to expand that to the sale of wine and beer. For this, they have applied to the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control for a Type 20 off-sale license. Before the license can be issued, ABC requires that the city issue the letter of public convenience or necessity to determine the suitability of what they deem an undue concentration in that census tract. The census tract is 304.03, and it currently has its maximum allotted number of off-sale alcohol license, which is 1. That number is based off of the population of the census tract. 1 on-sale license is allowed per 2,000 persons, and 1 off-sale, which is the category that the applicant has applied for. 1 off-sale license is allowed per 2,500 persons. The population for the census tract is just under 1,400, allowing them just the 1 off-sale license, with additional that can be issued with this, with the finding from the local jurisdiction that it serves either public convenience or necessity. This is not the case for this location, but ABC also requires this letter before issuing a license in an area that has a crime rate that is above average. Again, that's not the case. However, it's just best practice. Staff did consult with Chief Stevenson, who has no concerns about issuing this permit or this letter. So should council find that the issuance of this license would serve public convenience or necessity, you may authorize the planning manager and chief of police to submit a letter of public convenience or necessity to the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control for the issuance of a Type 20 off-sale license for 2435 Venice Drive, Suite 107, Pirate's Chest, Lake Tahoe. I'm happy to answer any questions, and the owner is here as well, if there's questions for her.
Great, thank you, Ms. Kashuba. Mr. Robbins.
Just to be clear, I have no problem issuing or supporting the letter of convenience. I'm just trying to understand the census tract and why we needed to do this at all. I have no problem approving it, that's not the issue, but I'm just trying to understand the mechanics here. The census tract, you gave a number for it, said it had 1,400. What is the geography roughly of that tract? Is that just Tahoe Keys area, or where does that extend to? Because it includes the map in the packet.
Yeah, so it includes the Tahoe Keys as well as the condominiums that are kind of across the way from the marina, and then a small sliver, I'm trying to remember the image, I believe on the east side of Tahoe Keys Boulevard coming out to 50. So it includes, for example, the current off-sale license right there is the Keys Liquor Market. That's kind of the front boundary of that census
tract. That's the one with the Indian market in it, right?
Correct.
Okay. So that's the other.
That is the one, yes.
So in a census tract, so that's state streets that it includes?
I believe so, yes.
So just want to make sure I understand this clearly. So in all of state streets plus all of Tahoe Keys, in that entire area, there's only 1,400 full-time residents?
As reported by the last census, correct. And I'm not positive that the state streets are included in that.
I mean, it has to be, because if the liquor store, which is on 50, is included, and the Keys is included, then State Street, which is between those two, it has to be included. They're not disjoint, right? So
it may not be. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I mean, the census tracts they follow various lines, and they're not always just a set structure like that. So I just want to respect Ms. Kashuba's comment that she didn't specifically print that map out or have that memorized.
That's fair enough. It's notable that in all of that area, hardly anyone actually, with that many houses, hardly anyone actually lives there. It's phenomenal. But, okay, all right, very good, thank you.
Great. Any other council members with questions? All right, seeing none, thank you, Ms. Kashuba. We will move to our Zoom platform for public comment.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and open up our Zoom platform for anyone who wants to give public comment on agenda item 11. There are no public comments via Zoom, Mayor.
Great, and we will take public comment in the room if there's anybody here. Seeing none, I will bring it back to council for a motion and/or a second.
I move that we pass a resolution approving and authorizing the planning manager and chief of police to submit a letter of public convenience or necessity to the California Department of Alcohol Beverage Control for issuance of a Type 20 license for the premises at 2435 Venice Drive, Suite 107, Pirate's Chest, Tahoe, LLC.
I'll second.
We will vote.
That motion unanimously carries.
Great. Moving on to item number 12, increased fines for vacation home rental citations, and this will be our city attorney, Mrs. Stroud.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Heather Stroud, City Attorney. This item is a follow-up from item that you heard a presentation on November 21st last year from myself and Ms. Stulman, our former VHR enforcement expert who sadly has retired. But council did request that I bring back an item to look at increasing our VHR citation amounts consistent with Senate Bill 60, which became state law in 2021 and authorizes local jurisdictions, including general law cities, to have fines of up to $1,500 for a first violation, $3,000 for a second violation of the same ordinance within a year, and $5,000 for each additional violation of the same ordinance within a year of the first violation, specific to short-term rental violations where there's a public health and safety impact. And the proposed ordinance in your packet does increase the fines for all of the VHR violations to those amounts based on the finding that is in recital D in that resolution. Our existing VHR ordinance does state that any violation of the ordinance is a public nuisance, and that finding also cites the various regulatory aspects of our VHR ordinance, including inspections that are required to protect public health and safety, to get a permit, parking and trash management requirements, and noise and other nuisance type restrictions on noise based on the hour. So with that, I am available if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Mrs. Stroud. Any questions from council? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and open this up on our Zoom platform.
I will go ahead and open up our Zoom platform for anyone who wants to provide public comment on agenda item 12. There are no online public comments, Mayor.
Great, we will open up public comment on, in the room on item number 12. Mr. Moser.
Ed Moser, South Lake Tahoe. This is all well and good, raising the fines, provided it has an effect. Currently, for those operating illegally, supposedly collected $150,000 or so, and it just kind of amounts to grabbing the low-lying fruit, because there are quite a few still operating illegally that don't have to advertise online or be caught online. It was explained to me by Maureen Stillman and Sonia Wheeler that, if the people just say it's friends staying there, there's nothing you can do about it. Excuse me. And the fact that, quote, if there's number of cars there at a house and cleaning people showing up, that doesn't mean anything either. That doesn't necessarily mean there's a violation. To which I responded was, well, when you have 3, 4, 5, 6 cars there during the week, another 3, 4, 5, 6 cars on the weekend, week after week after week, all summer or through ski season, I think that does kind of give you a clue. Somebody doesn't have 150 friends, 200 friends that they're going to let use their house for nothing. So, like I said, without actually getting out and seeing, observing, and there are actually ways that you can enforce. You don't have to buy into the friends. People cross the street from me said, called me up a couple of times and, friends are coming up over Christmas and, and everything, because we need money to paint the house. Like I said, this is grabbing low-lying fruit and really isn't enforcing, the issue. Like I said, there's dozens, and I suspect several hundred that are still operating illegally, and continue to do so. And the city, as far as I'm concerned, and what I see, and from what I hear, is that basically you'll forego getting TOT on them, because as long as there's an extra couple of thousand people here that are spending money, you're getting sales tax, and you're collecting, businesses, restaurants are making money off it and stuff, so you can forego losing the TOT on it just to, and overlook the problem. That is the truth, Ms. Wallace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moser. Mr. Wallace?
Dwayne Wallace, Chamber of Commerce. What happens, what I saw happening over the years is that the parties happened at night and on the weekends, and the enforcers, for some reason, worked during the day, 8 to 5. I never could figure that out. And so we always felt that the rules should be enforced because a neighborhood should have the qualities of a neighborhood. Your kids should be able to go to sleep at night without somebody yelling and screaming in a hot tub, or those kinds of things. But just I could see enforcement making a lot more sense than just jacking up the price, because if we're just trying to get this to be a playground for the rich can afford it in case they get caught. So the fines seem excessive to me, and they seem to be kind of along the lines of the vacancy tax, the people that are proposing that. Those are huge amounts of dollars that most families don't have. So some uncle or something has a key to the place and has it, it costs you $6,000. I'm sure you wouldn't want to let them do it again, but that's a lot of doggone money. It just 5 times the amount is in my mind, punitive and excessive, at least for that number of violations. It's just, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace. Anybody else in the room for public comment? All right, seeing none, we will bring this back to council for discussion and/or motion.
I do have a question. Ms. Stroud, maybe you can answer this, or I don't know. But how many, if we had this in effect last year, how many would it have? I guesstimate is fine.
I don't have an exact number, but I did recently look at there were about 15 properties that had multiple citations. So those would have gotten the escalated fines.
Thank you.
All right, any other discussion? Mr. Friedrich? Oh, excuse me, I don't know. It's not showing up, but yes, go right ahead, excuse me.
Ms. Stroud, aren't these amounts in line with SB 60? Isn't that where they came from?
Yes, these are the maximum of fines that are allowed under that law.
Okay, maximum. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right, anybody who would like to put a motion?
I'll put a motion.
That's fine.
I move to pass a resolution increasing fines for vacation home rental citations to $1,500 for the first occurrence, $3,000 for the second occurrence within the year, and $5,000 for subsequent occurrence within the same year.
Second.
We will vote.
That motion carries.
So moving on, we are on item number 13. This is going to be the updated resolution and citizens' appointments to boards and commissions, and this will be Ms. Blankenship.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So every year I solicit for applications to our boards and commissions for all commissioners whose terms are expiring in February. I did the solicitation starting in November. We did receive applications for 2 of the 5 boards that we have, 2 of the 5 boards that I solicited for, and the other commissions did not receive any applications at all. So we do have some applicants here for the Planning Commission and the Parks and Recreation Commission for appointment. Additionally, on May 2nd, Council directed me to bring back a resolution changing the Boys and Girls Club representative to a voting position. I have brought that back before you. There's just one issue, is that if this would now just be a 6 voting member board, generally we like to have it offset. So we could do a couple of things. We could change the TID member to also a voting member. That would be a very large voting board. That might be a large quorum. Or you could reduce the kind of lay member without the requirement to be a Boys and Girls Club. We could eliminate that, and that would still be a 5 voting member board. It's kind of 2 ways I was thinking that we could do it, or you could just leave it a 6-member board.
Could we eliminate the TID vote?
That's up to you as well.
That's an option.
Yeah, well, they aren't a voting member right now.
Oh,
They're
not
just a
voting member. Okay,
representative,
gotcha.
yes.
Great.
So we do have, I see we have 2 applicants, 1 applicant online, and I do know that we have a couple of applicants in the, thank you, in the audience as well.
All right, well, great. Well, I guess we will first hear from our applicants, and then we can put together who we're going to appoint. Let's go to Zoom first, and we'll open up the Zoom platform.
Okay, I know that for our planning commission, we have Mr. Figer. And did you have any specific questions for Mr. Figer, or did you want him to just give a statement?
Yeah, statement's good.
All right, Mr. Figer, you're on with council.
Hey, good evening. Thanks all. Wish I would have been able to stay for the entire meeting tonight, but yeah, I just want to say I really enjoyed my last 2 terms. I had a 1-year term to start with, and then I'm just came to the end of my my second term, which was 2 years, so 3 years total. I found it rewarding. I think I've provided some benefit to the city and to council as far as vetting projects before they come to you. And yeah, happy to answer any questions, but I would like to continue on as a commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Figer.
All right, so we will open it up to anybody in the room that has applied for either of these commissions that would like to give public comment. Yes, go ahead and come forward.
Public comment on him, or just?
Yeah, it's public.
Should we maybe listen to all the planning commission applicants and then move on? So do we have
Yeah.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes.
All right, why don't we just go down the list so I can help kind of organize it a little bit.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Keith Roberts for the Planning Commission. I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be on your commission for 2 years. It's been an honor to be part of such a great team. The city staff is amazing, and the amount and the quality of the work they do is impressive. I admire all the hard work and the success of this city council. I'm proud of my work on the Planning Commission. I hope I have assisted the council members in making sure agenda items coming before them are detailed and well thought out. I hope you give me a chance to continue being part of the team to continue helping with the future challenges of the city. Earlier, one of the people that spoke from the public mentioned the Planning Commission, and of course I was disheartened by that. When I started on the Planning Commission, I was very fortunate to do a training with that the county put on. And one of the things I learned on there was that our job on a planning commission is not to drive city policy, but to make sure that the agenda items that come before us meet all the parameters of the general plan, the different elements, TRPA, et cetera, et cetera. And our decisions should not be made with emotions or with any agenda attached to them. Most of these items come before us with great detail from the city staff, which is quite amazing. And we don't drive these policies in the city, but I think with innovative ideas and keen observations, I think we can influence those policies. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Roberts. Mr. Williams.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Doug Williams. I had the pleasure to serve 3 years on the Planning Commission before. I really enjoyed it. I thought that I gave a lot of good input to the commission to help make good decisions. I would like to see us do a little bit more, maybe helping with figuring out good ways to come up with some affordable housing means. At the last time I was up here, one of the council members told you that I'm against affordable housing. I am not against affordable housing. I was one of the founding members of the Tahoe Home Connection, and our job was to try and figure out ways to get some affordable housing. And we did work on those. We were helping people find rentals, and unfortunately, we were unable to continue with that because it took a lot of man-hours to do that. I would like to see if we can come up with some more innovative ways to fund our housing. I think the council member that said that I was against it. I'm really against the high cost of what we're currently doing. It flabbergasted me to think 825,000 units, and that's what I was against. I want to see if we can figure out some ways to get that price down lower. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Riala.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jackson Riala for the record. I've been before you multiple times now to explain my qualifications for the Planning Commission position and petition you for an appointment. Rather than repeating myself again, I thought I would provide you with a little bit of additional personal context for your consideration tonight. When I served as a Civic Spark Fellow, I joined the 100% Renewable Committee to become more acquainted with the players in this community who were dedicated to transforming our community into a more sustainable place. At that time, the 100% Renewable Committee was addressing these issues, or addressing issues that I was intimately involved with due to my work with the city as a Civic Spark Fellow. Since my fellowship term ended, I have continued to volunteer my time to the committee because I wanted to continue to be involved in our transition to a renewable community, and because I have felt a deep sense of fulfillment giving back to this wonderful place. However, as our community faces more complex and intricate energy transition and sustainability issues, I have been left feeling like I do not have much value to contribute or add to the committee. Lucky for our community, we have added many experts in these fields to the committee that are able to fill in those gaps. Professionally, I have now been working as a land use planning consultant for the last 3 years. I've spent countless hours over that time interacting with TRPA and South Lake Tahoe code, planning documents, and staff. My grasp of the regulatory framework here in the basin is very strong, and I would love nothing more than to give back to the community in a new way. Given the field that I feel most confident in providing expertise, the Planning Commission is a perfect position. I'm not interested in any political grandeur here, but rather in helping transition our built environment into the same vision of a sustainable model that the TRPA and the City of South Lake Tahoe have envisioned in their respective planning documents. Lastly, I know that that recusals have been a contentious topic in the past, and while I certainly may have to recuse myself because of my job from a limited number of projects over the course of a planning commissioner term, so do all other public officials. I have seen many of you recuse yourself from city council agenda items as well as planning commissioners recuse themselves from projects under review as well. It is my hope that I am considered for this position with the understanding that we all face conflicts of interest in public positions, and I will not have to recuse myself on any level of frequency that is not already accommodated for other people. With all of that being said, I deeply appreciate your guys' consideration and time tonight, and I hope to have given you guys some additional insight into why I would be a great fit for the city's planning commission. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Riello. And do we have Ms. Luxinger?
Good evening, council members and mayor. I'm Julie Luxinger. I'm new here, but born and raised in South Lake Tahoe. And I would just like to get involved. I haven't been on any of the city commissions. I saw that the position opened up in November, December, and did a little research and decided that it would be something I'd be interested in. I am in the housing profession as a long-term rental property manager. I own a small business up here. So I would hope to bring a fresh perspective to the Planning Commission and provide, in general, I'm a fair and unbiased person, so I would hope to see all sides and help make good decisions. So I'm happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you. I don't think we have any questions, but thank you so much for being here. All right, so should we bring it back to council and we'll get a motion for the Planning Commission and then move on?
We have public comment.
On the planning commission part?
Well,
We could do it Anyway you choose, if you'd like to go ahead and have public comment on this part and then come back and forth, it's fine.
Because it's fresh and let's go ahead and take public comment on the Planning
Okay.
Commission, and we'll open up the Zoom platform.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open up our Zoom platform for anyone who wants to provide public comment on our Planning Commission appointments. No Zoom comments at this time.
Great, and anybody in the room for public comment on the Planning Commission? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for some recommendations.
And I did just want to mention that we have 2 two-year terms and 1 limited term vacancy for this position. So we would need a motion for 2 two-year terms and 1 the limited term.
Mr. Friedrich.
Well, I want to thank the applicants. It's always hard to be in this position because you want to embrace everyone's offer to serve as unpaid position. So anyway, thanks for everyone who has stepped forward. I'm prepared to make a motion, but we can have discussion unless we want to just all discuss and then kind of just collectively decide. I'm open to either approach.
Well, I think, let's hear from Ms. Cregan. She would like to,
Well,
and then maybe we'll come back to a motion since she's
okay.
requested.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, I'll just go ahead and offer my initial thoughts without making a motion is what I'm getting at. So we can just kind of keep it open. So it was just that first thought. I think Mr. Roberts and Mr. Figer have done fine job serving, and I would support them, getting the two-year positions, and then we have 3 folks who have applied for 1, and I think there's things to commend about all of them, and whether it's experience over the years and prior service on the Planning Commission as Mr. Williams or as Ms. Lunksinger, welcome back, new ideas, and stepping up to serve. That's commendable. Where I stand, my experience with Mr. Riallo is from his days of the Civic Spark, just doing a fine job. We can all remember his presentations here, to then interacted with him over the years in various capacities, including the 100% Renewable Committee, and I found him, uniquely kind of responsive and engaging with ideas and solutions. That I thought was a continuum of his work as a Civic Spark fellow. So I just think that he's, especially, would bring a lot of kind of fresh ideas, which he also outlined in his application on some of the key issues that are in our strategic plan related to electrification and sustainability. And I think we need all the kind of ideas and insights there, as well as his kind of being steeped in the field of land use planning. He acknowledged that there are probably some issues that he won't be able to vote on, but the lion's share, I think that experience will be useful in kind of bringing that kind of experience to the table. So I'm not going to make a motion, as I said, but that's where I'm leaning in that team.
Thanks. For those of you who've never sat through this process before, where we sit up here and do this planning, it's super difficult for us. I just want to put that out there. It's very difficult for us, especially, when there's more people than there are seats, because as Mr. Friedrich said, we want everybody who wants to be included in participating in the city be able to do so. So that's just my little soapbox first, to say that I'd really like to support Ms. Luxinger. As you could see, I know her well. I think that we, the 2 incumbents are incumbents, and then the 2 other applicants we've already not chosen twice at this council, and specifically wanted other new candidates for these positions. And now we have one who's, I think, really uniquely qualified. So I would like to see the incumbents reseated and Ms. Luxinger.
Great, thank you. Anybody else with any comments? Or, excuse me, Mr. Robbins.
Yeah, I really like, Jackson seems to be, frankly, unusually qualified for the role on a planning commission. I can't recall the last time we've seen someone come by with that direct a set of qualifications for the role. I think that would be And I recall early on in my first entry into local politics that you can't be a local in local politics without some conflicts of interest. That's not a thing that exists. So everybody recuses themselves from time to time. That shouldn't be considered unusual. I do like Ms. Luxinger as well. I think having some diversity of opinion and background on the commission would be good. I'd be okay with cycling out one of the incumbents. I think having some rotation is fine. I don't have a particular idea of the two incumbents who that would be, but I definitely particularly would like to push for Jackson on that commission. I think that's an unusually high level of qualification for that role. That is an unusual thing to come by for a volunteer position. Although maybe we should talk about it being paid a minimum wage.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Ms. Wallace.
So not everybody has to recuse themselves. I don't. And so recusals are an issue. Yes, you have a person who has a lot of experience in the industry. It's because he works in the industry and comes before his agency or his organization comes before Planning Commission and or City Council at times. I too am happy with Ms. Luxinger, and I would not be opposed to looking at the incumbents because I think that Mr. Williams has shown leadership and a great sense of responsibility in his 3 years on City Council, and I'm sorry, not on City Council, on the Planning Commission, and he has, as far as I know, never recused himself, and has done due diligence with every single time that he's been involved. He's one of the smartest people I know. He's very, very good at what he does, and the what he brought forth on the Planning Commission was wonderful. I also really, I really like Mr. Figer. I think he's a wonderful human being, but I would support Mr. Roberts. So my vote is for Keith Roberts, Julia Luxinger, and Doug Williams.
Mrs. Cregan.
Well, you didn't get to speak yet. Do you want to for me?
Well, yeah, I mean, so for me, I definitely think the incumbents we should keep on the board. They've done a great job, they've done a great service, and if they want to continue serving, I feel like that's appropriate. I don't see any reason to remove them. As far as, I do also, I think that, diversity on our board, I'm really happy to see Ms. Luxinger want to be involved. And I think, I very much support her. I'm really kind of back and forth on Mr. Williams and Mr. Riallo. They're both great, and I, without a doubt, would say they're both qualified to be on the board. I guess my only, Mr. Williams has served on the Planning Commission, Mr. Riallo hasn't, and his background, without a doubt, it fits the Planning Commission role. So I feel like just because of the reality of somebody, Mr. Williams has served, we've got somebody that really hasn't and wants to be involved. So I think I'm probably lining more on the side of Mr. Riallo and Mrs. Luxinger and the incumbents.
So there's only 3 spots. So there's 3, not 4. So I'm going to go ahead and make this motion, which is going, and then we can just see, which is I'd like to appoint Keith Roberts to a 2-year term and Jackson Riallo to a 2-year term and Julie Luxinger to a 1-year term.
So we got a motion. Anybody second? So if we have no second, the motion will die and we can come back.
I just wanted to have a little more conversation. I'm not too opposed to that. I think that's okay. I just wanted to chat a bit more for a minute. Yeah, Cody, I think I'm also okay with keeping the 2 incumbents and Jackson as well. That would be another option. I think that's also fine. Although I did like Ms. Luxinger, but I think Councilwoman Cregan's point is well taken, that there are more good applicants than there are seats. And I'm glad you mentioned the fact that it feels awkward to talk about people right in front of them. It's in multiple, so that's unfortunate. That's frustrating, but I do like the 4 options, but we only have the 3 seats. So if there's a preference for keeping the incumbents rather than swapping one out, my preference would be to nab Mr. Riallo while we have the shot. I think that's just too high a level of qualification to overlook. If that's what the consensus is going to be at, and it seems like that may be where it's at. But I'd be okay to do a vote on the 3 or a vote on the 2, but we might have support for all of those. So I'll try putting forward a motion for Mr. Figer, Mr. Roberts, and Mr. Riallo with and acknowledging that there is some concern about the recusal to see how it goes, and put Mr. Riallo in for the 1-year term, and then we can revisit that if it's an issue and make a follow-up decision later. That's one way to address that concern.
Second.
And if it works great, we don't have to do anything.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. All right, we will vote.
That motion fails.
All right, so we'll bring it back. For me, again, I talked about diversity, and I think for me, I do feel like having some diversity on the board is important. So we're back to somebody else putting up forward a motion.
I'll put forward, I'll repeat Councilwoman Cregan's motion then. I think that's also acceptable to me. So I'll propose, sorry, Ms. Cregan, which one of the incumbents was it that you were proposing to keep?
Mr. Roberts.
Okay, then I'll propose Mr. Roberts and Ms. Luxinger for the 1 year though, and then Mr. Riallo for the 2 year, for the other 2 year.
Okay, I'll second that.
Any chance of comments?
Yeah, we can make comments on the motion. Mr. Friedrich?
Well, again, great things to say about everybody's, but in this case, I just want to note that we're would be not renominating Gavin Figer, and I think Gavin Figer has been said is very thoughtful, even-handed. He's well-versed in issues facing the city and TRPA, probably is more knowledgeable about TRPA issues than about 99.5% of the cities, and I think very solution-oriented, kind of really rooted in our priorities here on council. So I personally would not support a motion that doesn't have him as part of it.
And I would echo exactly those comments. I think Mr. Figer's done a great job, and removing him would not be something I could support.
That's okay. That's totally okay. Okay, I agree completely about Mr. Figer. He's an amazing community member at tons of levels. So he participates in many, many things for our community. And so this is an opportunity, the way that I'm seeing it, is an opportunity to get some new people in. Because, of course, Mr. Figer is amazing. But there's also new amazing people. Hence the motion.
All right, so we have a motion and a second, and we can vote.
That motion fails.
So
You guys make the next motion.
we're back to
I'll
the
let you
floor.
do it.
Mr. Friedrich.
I made 2 that failed. We've done the other, we've tried the other alternatives. I'll make a motion then on, you guys were talking about wanting to keep Figer, right? So then I'll make a motion on Mr. Figer, Ms. Luxinger, and Mr. Riallo, with Mr. Riallo for the 1-year term. That was the motion earlier, right? We've now had other.
That is now the motion.
No, I mean, that was also the motion earlier, so.
It was
Roberts.
I'll second that motion also.
Motion and a second, we can vote.
That was the one you wanted Figer, right?
Motion currently stands with Ms. Luxinger, Mr. Figer, and Mr. Riallo. That is currently the motion on the floor.
With Ms. Luxinger as the 1 year?
Yes.
I just wanted to, if it's okay,
Yeah.
or make a motion.
Well, no, I just wanted to clarify that that wasn't what I said before you said that. I'm just saying, I had made a motion for Mr. Figer, Mr. Roberts, and Mr. Riala, just for the record.
That's the motion that failed, so this
I
one
make a
is-
motion that we do Mr. Figer, Mr. Roberts, and Ms. Luxinger.
We had a motion that was seconded, so let's vote on that one.
We already have a first and a second. We're just waiting for.
For the-
So I have it with Mr. Robbins and Ms. Cregan, the first and second. And we can go ahead and start voting.
The motion is Mrs. Luxinger, Mr. Figer, as well as Mr. Rialo. That's currently the motion on the floor.
We can't have everybody.
Mr. Friedrich? That motion carries.
Right, so thank you guys, and again, thank you for everybody that applies. We would love to be able to seat you all, and you're all very well qualified. And thank you for those that have been appointed for being willing to serve. So we will move on to item number 14, our agenda planning calendar.
Nope. We still have the Parks and
gosh.
Recreation Commission.
I'm so sorry, I thought, moving on, man,
So close.
oh, so close. All right, Parks and Rec Commission.
I do believe we have Ms. Richmond in the room.
Right, great. Ms. Richmond, would you like to address the council?
Good evening, Mayor Bass and council members. My name is Amelia Richmond. It has been an honor to serve on the Parks and Recreation Commission for the past year. If reappointed, I hope to continue to work on improving equitable access, building community, and expanding parks and recreation offerings for residents and families. In my first year on the Parks and Rec Commission, I worked as part of the Recreation Equitable Access Subcommittee to bring the city's significant decline in lifeguards and swim lessons to council's attention. Our subcommittee also met with the city's Public Works Department to discuss accessibility improvements, sidewalk clearing, road line repainting, and we met with the chief of police to discuss updating the Lime and Bird scooter contracts to include geofenced parking corrals and the inclusion of adaptive scooters. Our subcommittee worked to agendize more community-focused topics at our monthly commission meetings and led the charge to have a regular Parks and Recreation presence at city council meetings. We also worked harder to ensure our community is accessible for all, and I'm grateful to Angie Regan, Stacy Ballard, and Access Tahoe for their work to make our commission better community advocates. I'm proud of the work we have collectively done as a team, and I hope to continue that work into a second term. Thank you for your consideration.
Great, thank you, Ms. Richmond. Mr. Bendel.
Thank you, Mayor Bass, City Council members, Jerry Bendel. I've been on the commission, honorably on the commission since 2016. It really has been an honor to serve. I've been chair for the last few years. It's a wonderful group of commissioners really making some differences now relating to the current rec center and as it's going to move forward to the new rec center with additional programming, additional accessibility, certainly looking at all the possibilities. Also, I do serve on the Parks Foundation, and the Parks Foundation works really closely with the Parks Commission as it relates to the new recreation center and funding of the furnitures, fixtures, equipment, and what's hopefully to be as well scholarships for those that are in need of scholarships for the new rec center. So I hope I'm able to continue to serve and see the new recreation center to fruition. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Mr. Bendel. Mr. Gregorich.
Good evening. David Gregorich. I've been last 5 years on Parks and Rec Commission. Really grateful for that opportunity and excited for the chance to continue. Among the things we've done, we've got the rec center funded and ready for construction. Construction really is kind of the easy part. Following up on that, we need to get the programming. We need to fill it, equip it, furnish it, operate it, and maintain it. I'm also on the board of the Parks Foundation, and together, I think we can do that. I'm really excited to be part of making all that happen. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Gregorich. And then we've got Mr. Robinson, if he's in the room, or, yes, there we are.
Hey, Mayor and Council. I'm Alex Robinson, or Kyle Robinson. I go by Alex, my middle name. Really excited. I'm a newish resident of South Lake Tahoe. We've been in town for a little bit over 2 years. I'm on the board of directors of the Tahoe Area Mountain Bike Association and see recreation as a pillar and cornerstone of the South Lake Tahoe community. So not just for mountain biking, but all the different areas that it represents, and have really enjoyed getting more involved in the community and would want to be able to lend my skills and passion towards making more recreational opportunities for everybody. So thanks for considering me and your time this evening.
Great, thank you, Mr. Robinson. And let's see, I think that is all of the applicants, so we'll bring it back to City Council and take public comment on the Parks and Rec Commission. So open up our Zoom platform.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open up our Zoom platform for anyone who wants to provide public comment on the Parks and Recreation Commission portion of this item. There are no public comments at this time on Zoom.
Great, and anybody in our room to give public comment on the Parks and Rec? Seeing none, we will bring it back to council. And I'm looking for, how many seats are we filling? So we've got 3 seats.
4 applicants, 3 seats.
4 applicants and 3 seats. All right, so I will look for a motion or any discussion.
Once again, we have 4 applicants for 3 seats, and we get to talk about them in front of everybody, which is awkward. But I particularly like Mr. Robinson bringing a perspective from TAMBA onto Parks and Rec. I think that's such a cycling is such a big component of our community. Having another voice, having a voice of cycling on Parks and Rec would be really, really valuable. And I think Ms. Richmond's tenure on there has gone exceedingly well as well, and her level of engagement. So I nominate Ms. Richmond, Mr. Gregorich, and Mr. Robinson. These are all 2-year terms, so we don't have to select who's doing which one, correct?
That is
Very
correct.
good. Then very well. I nominate Ms. Richmond, Mr. Gregorich, and Mr. Robinson.
Okay, Ms. Wallace.
I'm sorry.
I don't know if that's
Let me rephrase it.
You didn't make a motion, but we want to have one.
I motion that we appoint Ms. Richmond, Mr. Gregorich, and Mr. Robinson.
A second. All right, seeing none, that motion fails. Ms. Wallace.
So I think that we go with all 3 of the incumbents for, as much as we are so thankful that you have applied, Mr. Robinson. I think that in the middle of the rec center build and the multi-generational, I would be very upset to lose Mr. Gregorich and Mr. Bendel. They have been so intricately involved in that. And I believe that Ms. Richmond has been an asset to the board. So I would move that we reappoint the 3 incumbents.
Great, is there a second?
I'll second.
Awesome, we have a motion and a second, and we can vote. All right.
That
so
motion unanimously carries.
We still do have an item to direct the city clerk to continue soliciting. Are we able to direct without taking public comment, or do we also need public comment on this?
And we also have to pass a motion regarding the resolution and any direction that you might have for the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Commission number of voting members.
Okay. Okay, and so we will have Ms. Wallace.
So with regards to this, I've thought about this a lot over the last several days, and based on also Ms. Blankenship's comments. I would, rather than adding an additional voting seat, I would like to see us convert one of the seats to the Boys and Girls Club seat and continue on with just a 5-member board, especially since we didn't get the applicants that we were looking for. So it's not like there's a huge need to add. And so we would still have 5 seats, 4 being at large, 1 being for the Boys and Girls Club, and the non-voting TID member. That's my.
Almost close. There's one of those members can be filled with a student. So both of those could be open to the Boys and Girls Club and the student. And then I've also changed it, if we don't receive any applications that fill those, they can just be the general public. So what we really want is applicants.
I agree with that, but I still recommend and hope that we just stick to 5 voting members.
Great. Any other discussion, Mr. Robbins?
Yeah, I'd also like to keep it to 5 voting members, one way or another. My biggest concern with the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Commission is that we've had an Arts, Culture, and Tourism Commission for well over a year now. And for well over a year, they've supposed to have been delivered a Arts, Culture, and Tourism Master Plan. And in a year, that hasn't happened. And adding more votes to the commission is not likely to speed up that process and add decisiveness to something that is way past the point where it should have been done. So I definitely want to keep it at 5 voting members. I'm somewhat agnostic as to swapping out the voting, who's doing what. I'm okay with keeping it, I guess, as is, although I'm not hugely opposed to that. My biggest concern is that we've established this commission and it kind of isn't functioning that well. And that's a more fundamental concern. And I don't want to exacerbate that absolutely do not want to exacerbate that by adding more more hands in the pot.
All right. Mr. Friedrich.
I just want to thank my colleague, Ms. Wallace, for a very creative solution that I embrace. That was good thinking. Thanks for thinking about that the last few days. I don't know if you wanted to make the motion, but I just wanted to.
I think we might need public
We
comment.
have.
Yes.
Just on the resolution
Okay, well, I
part,
guess my
that would be
comment.
great.
Nice.
Yeah, so we're going to take public comment on the first part of item 13 as well as the 5th part of item 13, and we'll go to our Zoom platform.
Okay, we'll go ahead and open up our Zoom platform for anyone who wants to provide public comment on agenda item 13 regarding the resolution or the direction to the city clerk to continue solicitations. And nobody on Zoom, Mayor.
Great. Anybody in the room on item number 13? Seeing none, we will bring it back to council.
So I will move that we pass a resolution amending Resolution 2023-013, Section 3, and that it be 5 voting members, 1 to a student, 1 to the Boys and Girls Club, 3 at large, unless we don't receive applicants for those 2 specific seats, and then they can all go to at large. And continue on with the non-voting TID member as the 6th member of the commission, and that we direct city clerk to solicit for applications to the Arts, Culture, and Tourism Commission, the Police Advisory Commission, and the Building Board of Appeals.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. We can vote.
Thank you for that clear direction. I appreciate it. Oh, I'm sorry. I knew it passed. That motion unanimously carries. Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, so moving on to item 14, final item of the night, agenda planning calendar, Mr. Irvin.
Yeah, the only thing I have to say, Mr. Mayor, is February 13th, the next meeting, 9 a.m. on the APC. It is looking light. I'm sure there's going to be a couple other items that'll be added in the next week, but no other news from me.
All right, and let's see, any other council members on the APC? Seeing none, we can go ahead and move on. Updates and announcements. We'll start with Mrs. Stroud.
I have none tonight, thank you.
Great. Mr. Irving?
Yeah, the only thing I have is within the next week, we'll be sending out a Bijou Park Connector Trail Survey, looking to get feedback from our community on the alignment and feedback from the community on how that project should take shape.
Great. All right, and Mrs. Blankenship?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I did have one request from our Recreation Facilities JPA Secretary, Mr. Bruce Eisner. He asked if the City Council would appoint an alternate to the Rec Facilities JPA, just in case the first can't be there. Right now, we don't have a second or an alternate for that. He would just like one appointed in case, like in this case, Mr. Robbins can't make the meeting on Friday. They had already noticed it. He can't make it, so they have to cancel the meeting because there isn't a second. And there wasn't enough time to put it on the agenda, but just, if I could bring that back, it'll be a quick consent item. Oh, it can't be a consent item because you have to choose somebody. Okay, I'll put it on the end of new business. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Blankenship. So now up to council member reports and comments, and we will start with Mr. Robbins.
Yeah, and to that point, I will be missing the next JP. And I should give everyone a heads up. There's a non-trivial likelihood that I will have to be remote on the next council meeting. For those who have been following, my father is seriously ill, and I do not have a timeline or schedule of how things will resolve eventually. I can't know that. So I've been bouncing back and forth to the East Coast as much as I can and coming back here as much as I can. I just want to give everyone a heads up. That's why I'm not going to be at the JPA meeting next week, is I've got to bounce, and I'm taking a few days, and then I'm going to be back in New York after that. So to be with my father as much as practical. So just a heads up. So I'm supportive of appointing an alternate for that reason as well. I think that's entirely well called for. That's the only thing I wanted to mention at this time.
Great. Mrs. Cregan.
I'm sorry about your dad. We had a Cal JPA, an ambulance meeting 2 weeks ago, and the ambulance JPA is doing awesome. There's always the financial challenges. There's a lot of, the way that the JPA gets its funding is pretty convoluted. There's always those challenges for a service that is so essential. The executive director, Ryan Wagner, does an awesome job with his board and his staff to really work through that to save that service for our community.
At the levels.
Yes, oh
At
yes.
the current levels,
Yes.
because that is up for grabs sometimes.
Great. Ms. Wallace.
I too am sorry for your dad. I will pray for him. I have had a clean Tahoe board meeting and the JPA meeting, both with Ms. Regan, and we are looking for temporary help because our executive director is going to be out for about 4 months. And so if anybody knows anybody. And that's pretty much all we talked about at our last meeting. So I just have had those two.
Great. Thank you. Mr. Friedrich.
Also condolences for what you're going through. I know your dad's still with us, but it's a hard time to endure, and it's good you're able to be with him. I was there the other night for the final days of the flight deck. It was great to see so many people in the community also, but not great to see a business that wasn't able to make it, and we certainly look forward to another neighbor. We miss the buzz of people coming in and out of here, and we hopefully can find a business that can make it work there, and would welcome such a business back. And then on actual business, I was Mr. Mayor Bass and I are kind of switched roles at TRPA and TTD, so I did start that first committee meeting with the Tahoe Transportation Implementation Committee a week and a half ago, where there was a discussion on a number of things, including some funds coming to the basin for micro transit. So we're in the midst of that conversation, how that relates to expanding Lake Link and our electrification goals, and how that money flows to that overall purpose. I think there's a lot of good opportunities, but a lot of discussions and decisions yet to be had. So we're in the midst of those. And with that,
Great. All right. Thank you. So yeah, I have a couple of things to report. From our Charter City Subcommittee, we have not had a charter that was ready to present to the council. Therefore, we have put the idea of a charter city at this time more or less on the shelf, which could possibly get reconsidered in a couple years. But just reporting that out to the public as to where that is at. I had a PADMA board meeting last week, and there are some interesting things. We're going to be looking at geothermal snowmelt, which could be a really cool kind of innovative thing now that we're 20 years this year from the year they built the gondola. And the village, we're looking at our boilers and things that snowmelt the sidewalks needing replacement. And so if we can move to geothermal energy, it could be a really cool project that then could replicate throughout town and save a whole lot of energy. The other things, I would like to see if I could get a second. As the flight deck we saw go out of business, one of the concerns has been the signage that we have here at the airport. And I think that the city could really look into improving the signage at the airport that not only would help this business, but we could also use it for the other businesses operating out of here. City knowledge, there's, it's the pathway into town. So if there's a second to consider that.
I'll second that.
Great. And with that, everybody have a great week.